If you want, you can. Little fingers go above my head like this. Thank you all for joining tonight. I'm Bonita Woods, and Kathleen and I are related. Our children are married. So I'm just thrilled on every level to be here tonight. Um, I want to start with I'm not one of those people who believes what's shown to me, even when it's shown from spirit. I used to be a geologist, earth scientist, and then I became a chef and a food scientist and nutritionist. So for me, fact and checking, double checking, knowing it's not even enough to just know why something is. I want to know, well, why is this being shown to me? How's it relevant? How's it fit in? How does it connect to everything? So when I speak to you all, it's important for you to know I'm speaking from, I've done research, I've thought about things, but my research is not just like watching Gaia TV or reading books. I'll also go and connect with my guides. I do a lot of work with people who are divinely connected. I am a divine conduit, a channel. As I said, I channel the Galactic Gateway. I've been working with White Shell Woman and White Buffalo Woman for years. And you can see some of the videos where they've channeled through me on my website and YouTube page. Last February, Gaia, our Divine Mother, started channeling through me. The first time she channeled through me, it was like maybe 10 minutes long. She spoke in the softest whisper. The next morning, I woke up, I felt like I had been at a concert screaming for like all day. My throat was so sore, I could barely croak out words, but we've gotten used to each other, and now I'll channel her for up to an hour at a time. And the things that comes out of her mouth are just, or in my mouth, are just amazing.
So do you remember what you say at the time, or is it like afterwards that you
Well,
look at the video?
because I'm a little bit of a self-control freak, I don't like to be totally out. I have a number of friends who channel that they don't know what they said until afterwards when they listen to the recording. And to me, that just sounds awful. Like the last thing I want is to provide an amazing experience for everyone else, and I'm excluded from it. Like I don't want to throw a party and then disinvite myself. So I am part of the experience. However, I fade back as much as I can. I've been channeling for it's about 3 years now. And before then, I've always had divine beings talk with me. I just thought that was normal. So I'm used to like arguing with those who know more than me, and I shouldn't argue with, but I am argumentative. The Years ago when I had my wellness center, it was just like physical wellness, nutrition, corporate wellness programs, stuff like that. But I did attend, like meetups and workshops. And I always kind of kept quiet and in the back. And then afterwards, I would like just scurry home. I wouldn't socialize with people. And one day, a white shell woman came to me in a vision, and I could see, like, as much as I see you here, it was like it was projected on a plate of glass between me and everything that was there. There she was on the plains, and even though I'd never met her before, I knew who she was. And she told me these four women that I had to gather together in a specific room in my wellness center, and I was going to lead a meditation, and she would channel through me. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I know these women, I think barely, but like I've seen them at events, like metaphysical events. I don't even know them. I don't know how to reach them. I've never channeled. I've never led a meditation in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. This is ridiculous. You need to go back to spirit. And she said, no, you're going to do this. I'm like, okay. So then the craziest coincidences appeared like immediately that brought these women into my path and brought me into their path. So, in the DC area, everyone's so overbooked. If you want to make an appointment with someone, you're usually talking weeks or months in advance. And yet, like 2 weeks later, they were all there in my wellness center, and we were sitting in the room. And I told them what happened, waiting for them to like laugh at me. And they said, "Oh, that's perfect because do you realize that the four of us are actually best friends and we meditate together all the time?" I went, "Oh, well, no, I didn't, but now I do." And two of them were mother-daughter. Um, so we did this, and White Shell Woman came through. White Buffalo Woman was not coming through yet; she was in the background. And so I guess that was like 5 years ago. Time goes by fast. Um, so now I never know who's going to come through my mouth. But because I've allowed myself the more, and by the way, anyone can channel. It's not like just anything I do, you all can do. So if at any point in this presentation, or if you're here on Sunday, you hear me talk about anything that it hits a chord of you, I want to do that, let me know, because that means there's something within you that's resonating with that vibration. So because of all the channeling and the divine connecting, and in this life, I've been in the Akashic Library, like literally since I was a baby. I was born in this life with full memory of my entire existence from when I was a spark in the Cone of Inception through, I was a runaway spark. Um, so I know.
Always back.
So I'm going to explain this to you because it shows about my direct connection with beings of other species and frequencies. When we're first born, there's this like cone that exists between time and space. And I don't know what's on the backside of it. It's just pure love and light. But these little sparks come out and they end up sort of separating. So this is like the twin flames. And I was born, but before I could separate out into twin flames or any of that, I got bored. And I'm in this cone, and it's like you feel like it's as, like comfortable as if it's just this room, but it's as expansive as though it's forever. And it's this giant cone, and in the base, it's all love and light, just sending love and light to you. And all the sparks are there, like vibrating, like, yay, we're sparks. They're like having a great time. And they're waiting until they mature enough that representatives from different species and beings come over, and whoever you're magnetic or like energetically drawn to, that's then whatever species or race you will go and become one with, and then they take you and join you with your soul families, and you're nurtured on until you become mature enough to start the incarnation process, or however that group of beings lives their existence. So I was over there and I'm in this cone and I'm looking out and I can see everything. From there, you literally can see everything. And everything seems like I could just reach out and touch it. And meanwhile, we're here, I was just getting bored. Like, I guess I'm truly the poster child for ADHD, like to my core being. And finally, I'm saying to the others, look out there. And they're like, yeah, whatever. We're here. We're sparks. Yay. And I'm like, I want to see what's out there. And they're like, no, stay here, stay here. I'm like, no. So I took off. And I took off and I was going and going and going. And at a certain point, I realized it was just all black around me. And I could still see the cone back there. And I could see that I had been like naive, thinking everything was right there, that it was very expansive. And the reason it seems so close is because that helps us like connect with whom we'll be. It was like an energetic closeness, not a geographic closeness. And there's one point when I realized I could still go back to the cone and be safe. But if I went any further, I would lose the cone. And I was like, and I took off. And I spent, I don't know how long, like an eternity, just bopping all around the universes. And I'd go and hang out with different races and species and beings. And sometimes I'd take on their shape and be like them. Other times I'd be a spark. Um, so I just connected with everyone and everything, which is why then one day I'm like buzzing around having fun. Bzz, I'm a spark going through when I got plucked out between these two fingers. And this fellow said to me, "It's time for you to grow up." And I was, and he made me stay on this planet that, like the book, The Little Prince, the meteor that he was on. It almost felt like that, only much more vast. And there were these fellows there, and they weren't male or female. They were just kind of barely had shape, and they were very pale, like the whitest white. But they had some spots of primal color on them, like weird floaty color around their head, and like deep. Their eyes would be surrounded by color, but if you looked in their eyes, they were just black and went as deep. And their mouths, when they opened their mouths, were black, but their lips were like green, red, blue, like very um and they were either like long and skinny or short or round, or their shape would kind of change. So it's like the creepiest clown posse you could imagine.
Were you scared?
Well, I was a spark, and they were all knowing. They were very wise. And their job was to collect those who were lost and help them find their place. So I stayed with them for a long time, but they don't have emotions, they just have benevolence. And for them to connect with me was great because I was pure raw emotion. And everyone in existence has a desire to grow and evolve. And in a moment, I'll talk about angels and how our connection with them does that. So for them to be nurturing and mentoring those like myself that were younger, but had elements these guys didn't have. Oh yeah, if anyone wants to turn off phones, go ahead. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I stayed with them for a long time, and then they said, now you're going to go to Earth and incarnate. I was sent to Earth, and life was very primitive then. And I got to see how life was injected into Earth. Um, and I actually have a video, I think, of Gaia channeling the creation of our planet and how this was truly a huge colossal thing. But I got to see how different beings from all over injected their DNA into Earth to help with the growth and development. But by the time I came, it wasn't, the animals were around, and it was like pre-human, and we got to help like inject. And when humanity started, we were still injecting and nurturing. I mostly hung out in the background because I was very immature, um, but I got to assist those who were wiser than me. And then I guess about sometimes I'd incarnate to see what was the human existence. But about 20,000 years ago, I just started doing the incarnation process again and again. It's been about 10,000 years as like a warrior. I just love this whole kill, be killed thing. It was like so much fun for me. Um, and, and then at a certain point I went, oh, I should probably start healing as well. So, and everyone in this room, I guarantee each of you has lived many lives. And I can guarantee that some of the lives are all kinds of experience. The thought that the more we evolve, the more we become truly benevolent and loving and kind, yes, in our higher state of being, but in our normal mortal life, the lives we live are the lessons we need to learn to help that happen. And sometimes the lessons we need to learn involve having a rough life or a mean life or whatever. And sometimes everything goes wrong and you don't end up with the life you planned. It's, you know, like think about planning your day. and everything that actually happens the way you planned, and think about then stretching out to a whole life, coordinating with all the other lives you coordinate with. Nothing goes as planned. Um, so in this life, when I was born, my brother and sister and I always had full lucid dream state, and we could see into other dimensions. So as children, we would often dream together, and we would go into the Akashic Library together a great deal. In the Akashic Library, because we were kids and we didn't know better, we would go and explore and roam around. We learned all there is in the library. They're telling me not all. We learned a lot. And you can see other dimensions. You can learn about other beings and races. I teach classes on this. It's really fun to go in there and like connect with beings from other dimensions. Um, so until a few years ago, I thought this was normal for everyone. And now that I know it's not, I am very happy teaching this to people. Um, the Lemurians, the Pleidians, and the Atlanteans are really just like very strongly connected to Earth. Um, there's a lot of theories out there, and there's a lot of like shifts in information. And I do want to, um, so I mentioned all of that so you know that like where I get my information from is extremely legitimate, but a little hard to document sometimes. Um, so is there a show of hands who here watches like Gaia TV or Gaiam TV? Yeah, so they do have what's his name, David Wilcox, and they talk a great deal about like the aliens that are on Earth right now. And it's some of the stuff they talk about is really frightening. It can sound really conspiracy theorists. I know people who work with them, so I know the evidence and information that they have, and you know they're speaking the truth. However, whenever we're speaking the truth of these things that are not 3D physical, we're channeling it through our perspective. Well, even when we speak the truth about 3D physical, it's always from our perspective and our ability to understand and interpret. Um, so I'm not going to form any opinions about anything because I don't know enough to form opinions, but I'll share with you what I do know. As long as there has been life on our planet, aliens have been helping and interfering. This I know because I have been shown this by the librarians, by Gaia. I've worked with people who and beings who were there, and they've enough. And I've been given the when sometimes when people talk with me, I'm able to tap into their vision and see what they're seeing, and and it's simple enough to check and recheck to make sure we are having shared vision. And I've gone with enough people shared vision that these things I'm comfortable saying. We have free will. So no matter how much they try to intervene or help out, it's up to us on what we do or don't want to do. It is very important you listen to your gut instinct because that's one of the first ways when your heart and your gut are speaking to you. Be very careful before you put your mind in the opposite direction. And I mean, how often have we said, I knew better? You know, I should have listened to my gut. That is one of the easiest ways for beings who are not physical to communicate with us. And if you find that your gut instinct is generally steering you towards your best well being, start listening to it more. Yeah. Um, so we have, I mean, you know, we know about our auras and how the aura is the energy that radiates from our core being. And our core being is energy that flows outside of our body, can connect to our higher self, can connect even to source, to angels. You know, energy doesn't need to be contained in anything. It's possible for us to be in multiple places at one time just by expending our energy consciously and allowing it to release from our physical being. Um, so for energetic beings to come here, it's very easy for them to affect us. They have limited resources. You know, they whisper in our ear. If we're ignoring them, then they're like, there's nothing we can do. But because everyone has free will, energetic beings also have free will. There's this wonderful book, Confessions of a Rebel Angel. I'll pass it around. It's if any of you have read the Urantia, which is like a really fat, difficult book to read, but it's all about the history of everything. This is like someone who, it's written by an angel channeled through a man, a 3D man, about who was and one of the rebel angels who was around when Earth and some of our brother and sister planets got cut off from the rest of the reality. And so she's speaking from the first person perspective about what happened that made our dimension so dense, so spiritually dense. For some reason, when he wrote that book, half of it is about his autobiography and half of it is about her experience. So I spend a lot of time thumbing through his stuff to get to her stuff because, you know, but according to this book and the Urantia and some other research.
How do you spell the
Urantia, what is it? Uranthia, I think. I'm hold on, let me take a. I'm looking right now. So I'm super dyslexic, so I always need to double check my spelling.
Never heard of it.
It is like, I think you're around page 1,000 before they even talk about Adam and Eve. Like, it's a very big, I think it's Uranthia, and
That gives me a beginning.
yeah, and it's like $15 on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there might be an E in there somewhere. I don't, but you'll find it. Yeah. It's sort of like the history of everything from the higher perspective.
Okay.
So in this book, The Rebel Angel, and in the Urantia, they talk about how there was a revolt among the angels. Because anytime you get any large organization, you're going to have some level of bureaucracy, and you're going to have some who are all knowing and all understanding. You're going to have others who are like doing the grunt work and they don't know why. So in this case, yeah, in this case, the angels who were in charge of like 86 planets rebelled and said, we want free will. We want our humans, you know, all of our life forms to have free will, and we're not going to do what anyone tells us anymore. So the divine energy that was flowing to these planets became diverted, and they were basically put in a dense darkness. This is not anything with the information I have personally received, but I know other people who have received this information as well. So it's certainly worth investigating as to why is it that we have such a dense environment.
So Earth was one of the 86?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I know. But then we choose to come here. And we could be elsewhere. We're not being forced to incarnate on Earth. It's our choice. So the question everyone has for yourself is, yeah, why did I choose to be here in this life? What is it I'm doing that makes this a valuable situation? And how do I make the most out of this So, so it's important to connect with your higher self and answer these questions. Um, so the we do have guardian angels. We do have the angelic realm. And the angels have connected with Earth because, again, we're so emotional and they can only vibrate on a frequency of love and joy. They used to only have love. Now they have joy. They've evolved. So they connect with us. It's very important that you use your guardian angel because if you don't, then your guardian angel is bored and you're not helping your angel. The more you acknowledge your guardian angel and say, yes, you can help me, your angel is able to then connect with you and like connect with your emotions, and that helps them send that energy to the collective of angels so that they can evolve. Imagine spending eternity with only love and joy. We'd be bored. They're a little bored. They want more of what we got, and we want more of what they got. We want to raise our vibration so that we can raise the planet's vibration. It's a two-way situation. So, little non sequitur. When I wake up in the morning, I tell my angels, I say, good morning. I give appreciation, blessings, gratitude, and I let them know what I want their help with that day. I don't tell them how they'll help me. I just say, like, I've got 3 clients back to back. Let's make it the best it can be. I got to do housework. Let's, help me out with that because I hate housework. I'm going to be really tired after my 3 clients of doing past life readings. So when I'm ready to cook dinner, let's just make sure that it's nourishing. And, I have 3 phone calls to make today I don't want to make, or whatever. They pave the way. They make it all good. When I go to clean house, I go to vacuum. 3 times more dirt comes in the vacuum cleaner than normal. I go to clean the dust wipes up like that. Yeah. So, and when I go to bed at night, I also give appreciation and gratitude and let them know what's going to happen the next day and thank them for what happened that day. And then when I go to sleep, it's a beautiful connection and they're able to help me in my dreams. So why am I talking about angels? What's the difference between an angel and an alien? Really not that much. Maybe an alien is 3D like we are on another planet, or maybe an alien is energetic like the angels. We're all life forms. But there's a lot of both life forms out there. So there have been a few civilizations that have risen up in time. We're not the first effort to build a race of beings on this planet. I'm sure some of you have heard about this, that going a little ways back in ancient Egypt, like old ancient Egypt, they were doing work with crystals that was amazing. They were doing, the ancient Egyptians had levels of technology that are like mind-blowing even for what we do now, because they were connecting with the light beings and they were channeling the information in, and they learned how to do energy healing, just as pretty much everyone in this room does, I'm sure. And they would create these crystals, or they would get crystals and like they would cut them in such a way that they could then connect it to energy coming from other dimensions and send healing rays. They were healing things like cancer and dementia and all kinds of diseases. I know so many people who have documented, okay, so many, that sounds like I'm a high school student. I've worked with a number of people who have documented cases of past life regression to these times. And I've also regressed clients there or done past life readings to there. It's really amazing. There was a religious sect that was in charge of all of the crystal healing. The women, for the most part, did the design and the construction and the maintenance, and the men did the actual lab work. And this was only because of sexism. That's all. Um, but they would literally tap into other dimensions and bring in divine healing. So this little box, I'm going to pass around, and you all are welcome to look at these. These are actually crystals that were apported from another dimension by Reverend Michael Shane. Last June, Michael spoke at my wellness center, and he has several things he does in his presentations that are so cool. One is he can apport objects from one dimension of reality to another. So he doesn't bring them from Earth reality. He brings them through Archangel Michael and Jesus send things through to him from their reality. And so the first night he arrived, we were having a dinner party um, and at Reverend Sally Knuckles' house. And he's sitting at the head of the table, and suddenly he turned to Sally and said, "I need a cloth." And she said, "Okay." She gave him a dishcloth, and he opened his mouth, and these crystals came pouring out of his mouth. And this was one. And he gave it to me. And it was very significant because for me, I don't love pure crystals. I love crystals with inclusions and things that are going on. And with the conversation we had had and things that were going on, the shape and the pink color to this and the inclusions were very meaningful. And through the rest of his visit, the rest of these crystals and this ring were apported from him. When I looked at his mouth when thick crystals were coming out, all I saw was black. Like, you know, you open your mouth, you see tongue and teeth. I did not see his mouth. There was a black portal that opened in his mouth, and this is how he did the majority of his apportations. Yes.
I know.
I was thinking like
Yeah.
Star Trek, so like teleported them, but
Yeah, so you can pass these around. You can look at these. And it really is quite extraordinary. And that's, so, you know, typical me. I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. That's cool. I want to do this, but I don't want things coming out of my mouth because, you know, and he said, well, also he's had things come out of his forehead, out of his tear ducts, out of his abdomen. No, it's just like a portal opens up and it comes out. And then I know other people who apport where they put their hand in a box and they pull out objects. Reverend Sally Knuckles once apported a necklace. Like she was in a deep meditation. She came out of the meditation. There was a necklace around her neck. And so I share this because it's good to know that these weird, freaky things are real. It's nice when we get proof that this is real. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, I've never seen a shape like that in a crystal.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, I've shown it to several geologists, and no one can quite figure it out. So after Michael, again, that story later because I want to talk about the aliens now. So we can use the help of those who are not in physical body. They can connect with us very, very easily and give us a lot of information. And this is one reason why when you hear about like the Nazca Lines and the pyramids or, you know, Stonehenge and people like, oh, aliens did it. I feel like it's a real disservice to humanity because people put a lot of work into doing this and then the credit goes to aliens. But the people are listening to information. They're allowing guidance to happen. And when you work with the aliens, things like this, where things appear out of nowhere, can happen. No one knows how they got the stones to Stonehenge because those stones came from really far away and there's no sign of how they traveled. It's possible they apported them there because, you know, there's so many things that are possible when you open your ear and listen to our brothers and sisters in other dimensions and they open up energetic pathways for us, things can happen. After Michael left town, and I worked with him a great deal for about 5 days. We worked together a great deal. Because he was working at my wellness center and staying at my parents' house. Um, he left town the next day. You know how in your house you have certain places where you put things that you're going to like put like on my dining room table and on a certain bookshelf. Well, the next day I walk in and they're on the bookshelf where items have been missing, some of them for like several years, all in a nice stack. And then I went on the dining room table and there's items there stacked up, everything I'd been looking for, a book, things like that in a nice stack. And I went into the kitchen where I always put like spare change when I don't know where my purse is. All the money in my home under sofas, whatever I think was there in a little pile. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, this is good. I need to learn how to do more of this, get all the loose change from the community,
So that's where like potentially the things that we is going to another dimension.
No, they were just like lost. They were in a sofa or under a bookshelf or whatever. I couldn't find them.
Oh, okay. So they just
But because I was getting into the apportation energy, they reappeared in a place where I always put things, which yeah.
okay.
Like one of the things is, I have portable phones, and I have two phones and one base. One of the phones had been missing for like 3 years, God knows where, and there was right there. I'm like, yeah, right there.
Were there socks there?
There was one mitten. There was a mitten
Was
in
there?
the pile. Yeah.
So I'm missing the link to how they actually.
I don't know how they do it. All I know is I got into the energy of being able to bring things that I wish to me, and they appeared in places where that are associated with where I put things before I put them away. So these things can happen. I didn't put these things there. My son didn't. He was asleep in bed when this happened. So these things do happen, and they're happening. We go, oh, spirit did it. But what spirit? What race? What being? That's the questions we get to. So in ancient Egypt, they were in such flow with receiving help and information from light beings, from um, beings of other dimension or frequency, that they were able to get a great deal of help from them to grow their culture and their civilization. Now, as for Atlantis, the Atlanteans were a divine race. They were an early stage of humanity. They were not, they got arrogant. They got arrogant and they basically did what we're doing to the planet right now. There's two stories of Atlantis I want to share with you. The first one is the geological one. There is an island off the coast of Greece, Santorini, and it's an old volcanic caldera. So it's basically a little ring of islands because long ago there was a civilization there, and this civilization was more advanced and wealthy than the surrounding coastal civilizations. They had better boats, and they would go invade and like bring back people as slaves and the like. Um, the island was volcanic; it blew up, and many people died, and a lot of them basically were thrown to the sea, and they were taken as slaves by surrounding, you know, those they used to enslave now enslave them. And, a lot of them would be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm a slave. I come from the best place ever. We were so wealthy. It was so fabulous. We had inventions you can't even dream of. And, um, and so this was like, geologists say this is the myth of Atlantis, is what we now call Santorini. If you do an analysis of a core sample of the Earth, the time that Santorini blew up, there's a huge ash flow area. Like you remember when Mount St. Helens blew up, and that put a layer of ash all around the planet. And when Vesuvius blew up, same sort of thing. Well, it's the same with this, but it's an earlier stage. It's much earlier in human civilization. And they like to jump about. They don't like being contained.
It seemed like all of us
Yeah,
dropped one or
yeah.
fell off.
They're very active.
Yeah.
They're constantly like, wee. And if I keep them in the box too long, like normally I keep the box by my bed, and I have my my pouch with some of my sacred medicine pouch items. So I'll keep it in here, and then I'll see one of them will be like on my bedside table. I'm like, oh, you were in here. What are you doing there? They do. They move around. So they're created to be used. They don't like to be neglected. So. um, So, geologically speaking, we claim that Santorini was the myth of Atlantis. It blew up, and everyone says, "Oh, it went under the sea," and all of that. Metaphysically speaking, we say that the people who lived on the island of Atlantis were some of the ancestors of the true Atlantis. The true Atlantis came earlier in civilization, when one group of when many of us were, most of humanity was like not quite humanoid yet. The Atlanteans were a subgroup that had a lot of DNA from other aliens. Um, and they grew and evolved, and they were very arrogant. Um, there was a whole race of beings on the planet then, but more widespread. And part of this was some of our alien brothers and sisters were really helping nurture different subgroups. The Lemurians were really active in like the Himalayan mountains, and they created a more benevolent, intellectually curious group. Very peaceful, always pursuing knowledge and understanding. The Atlanteans were much more like the Donald Trump kind of beings. Yeah. And they had their primary areas where they were. They were not the only beings on this planet. This was a time when, as humanity was evolving, aliens were creating, like sending. Okay, I'm going to read this to you so it can explain it a little better than I can. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I thought I dog-eared the right page, but I don't know what that was. Um, so what they would do is they would send a group of humanish shaped aliens to the planet. Like they would grow them. It could be from energy or whatnot. And they would have them meet with humans on planet and exchange DNA so that you would get a race of superhumans. Exactly. Exactly. So often they're referred to as gods who then, but, and in a way, you might say they were because they were super beings from another place.
Was this the Lemuirans?
Well, there was a lot that did this all across, and they still do it. It's still something that happens, but it's harder now because our energy is denser. It just keeps getting denser and denser. That's why we're trying to lighten up the energy. So suppose a race of beings will send 100 aliens to Earth. They'll find 100 humans and they'll exchange DNA. So the humans that agree to do this evolve dramatically and instantaneously. And the aliens are able to connect with the human experience and the earthly experience. And from there, they create a race. They intermingle with the humans, and they try to affect them however they can. This has had, depending on how much they strike terror or how much they strike godlike, worship, or how much they're able to just go in and mix in. Um, a little it was sort of catch as catch can from the different alien species on what they think humans will accept. So some of them kind of got like destroyed as soon as they hit the ground, and others were just like assumed to be human and absorbed in with humanity, and others were revered as gods. So it was a real mixed batch, but the Lemurians and the Atlanteans were the two most successful of all of this. The problem is the Lemurians really cared about peace and love and harmonious being, and the Atlanteans really loved the power of all of this. They loved how powerful they felt with, and they really fell into technology. And the more you get into technology, the more you rely on technology to do for you, you stop connecting this way through yourself. So the war between the Lemurians and Atlanteans was really love versus greed. Yeah, and this is where the war between good and evil really became a concept.
When you say war, was this a physical war or this was a
Both.
metaphysical war?
It was both, actually. Like when the angels go to war, they pull out their swords, but the swords send the energy of love. So if you get hit with the sword of an angel, it doesn't decapitate you, it fills you with love. So you have the Lemurians on one side sending out love. You have the Atlanteans on the other side building weapons of destruction. And, so it eventually, like, these two have to either mix together and have a mediocrity, or you're going to have a collision, and mediocrity is never the way we're going to go. So the Lemurians were finally said, you know what? We're leaving the planet. We're beings of love. We're not going to spend all our time defending ourselves against hate. And they literally left the planet to the Atlanteans, who basically blew themselves up with their greed. When you don't have someone to fight against anymore, you start fighting among yourself. And they kind of destroyed themselves.
This is all sounding very familiar.
I know.
Today's world.
This is happening
Now.
No lessons were learned. No lessons were learned. But the seeds of their work remains in earth, like the Lemurian seed crystal, which is one of those right there. And most of them are found like in the Himalayas and Brazil, Bolivia area. It's a crystal that maybe we could pass that around. When you take this, it's got, like any crystal has growth platelets, but the edges of the growth platelets remain very defined. So you have all these little notches going across it like this. And what you do with the Lemurian seed crystal is you take your fingers and just go into a deep meditative state, and you rub your fingers along the edge of the crystal till they find a place they naturally want to rest. And you let yourself space out, and the Lemurians come through, or sometimes other beings of love and infinite wisdom, and they'll share information with you. So be careful when you hold this. Hold it at the base. And the copper is an amplifier. That's so I've received a few lessons from the Lemurians. One of my favorite was they told me how it is that light beings or beings are able to travel through space so quickly and easily. Like we look at, oh, this star is 15 light years away from us, and this one is 1,000 light years away from us. Then, like, it makes no difference, because they say you're here and you want to go there. So you're here, you energetically connect to there, and then you turn your body and you're there. It's that instantaneous. And they practiced it with me. And
What kind of like teleporting?
it's sort of like teleporting, except you don't become particles, you just change where you are. It's a change of perspective. Um, so this is how the Lemurians are connected with us. You can meditate with them. They have a great desire to share their infinite knowledge and wisdom, and it's all truly love-based. But the Atlanteans have kept their energy on Earth, and they got kind of dense. They got really dense. So you may have heard of the what is it? The reptilians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I feel like in my gut, I feel like the Atlanteans are getting a little bit of a bum rap because I don't think you could ever say all of any race of beings when they're individuals will be one way. So I feel like when we talk about the Atlanteans, we have to know there's a certain portion of them who have gone off and worked with the reptilians. The Atlanteans, there's no way to remain physical, so they became energetic. And you know how I said everyone has free will to a point? Um, there are those who were more divine that wanted to explore some of the lower vibrations long ago, long ago. And the more they explored the lower vibrations, the more they got lower and lower and lower. There is some that pull themselves back up, and there's some that get lower and lower and lower. And it's the same we see here in our everyday life. You have people who are always rising their highest. People go through rough times but get themselves up, and then people who just go down to the pits. It's exactly the same. The lower you become, the more you change. And those who are demonic or reptilian, once upon a time, they were love and light. It was through a series of choices they became dark and dreary. Um, and it's important to remember that. And this is how, when the Lemurians would go to battle against this, they would send love to remind them, because that spark of love always exists in there. Just a matter of do they wish to recognize it. So these reptilians that are here with our current day government, inside each of them, there's still a spark of love, but they're not acknowledging it. And that's important to remember. Um, and so the Atlanteans have been hanging out here all this time on a more energetic state of being. And they are now very strongly affiliated with the reptilians. Um, and
They
they're,
still exist right now.
yeah. And keep in mind, I mean, think about us in our higher state of being. In our high state of being, we're pure energy, and energy doesn't stop existing. They stopped existing physically, but they're still there energetically. But they stopped existing at a moment of pure arrogance and greed and all of that. So their energetic state was damaged and remained very dense. So instead of returning to their higher state in some nice higher state place, their higher state is in a very low place, and they're connecting with very low beings.
So who are the reptilians then?
This is and again, I have a video on my website of this where Gaia once explained to me. It's so beautiful, so I might cry a little bit when I'm saying this. That I asked her, how did everything happen? How did all this happen? And she said, and I can't. Her words are so much more elegant than mine. But once long ago, there was nothing, and then there was a what is it? And then there was a spark of life, and this spark separated out. And she said it was her and God. And when they were first created, they were created back to back, looking out on this great expanse of nothing and feeling the beauty of this void. And then they turned around and saw each other, and immediately love appeared. And it was in that moment of their seeing each other and love appeared that everything appeared. So that's like the Big Bang theory. And she said, from the moment the spark of love, everything was created from the spark of love. So everything was love to begin with. Anything that is non love was created by personal choice, bad decisions. A need to explore. I want to explore my bad side for a while, but then you learn from it, you get back to your good side. But some haven't. They've gotten darker and darker and darker. And as Guy said, it's like when you have children and they're having a playtime and then they start getting into a fight, you're like, okay, now it's time to break it up. She said, now it's time for us to really, like, okay, the experiment of exploring darker, denser energies is over. Now it's time to jack everyone back up. Um, so the reptilians were once divine beings who have gotten darker and darker and darker. They don't want to be alone. They don't want the planet's vibration to go back up. They don't want us to reconnect to love and light and the rest that's out there. So they want to do everything they can to sabotage that from happening. Um,
The medicine woman on the reservation talked about that.
yeah,
They see them.
yeah, they're not nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're not attractive. There is this wonderful shaman who in Sedona who was talking about how he loves hiking through the mountains of his backyard. And one day he was out hiking along, and this beautiful woman, who was obviously not human, came to him and said, "Would you like to go with me to my planet?" He's like, "Yeah, of course, you know." And so she said, "I'll take you to my spaceship." And he said, "Great." And he followed her to this one mountain that he has been hiking on since a child. He knows this mountain, he knows it through and through. And she went over to a cliff wall, and the cliff wall opened up, and there was a spaceship. They went in the spaceship that was filled with beings of her people, and they went. And he said it couldn't have been more than a minute, and they were at her planet in another part of wherever. And they showed him around. They had a good time, and then they went back, and he was back, and he said he felt like he was gone for like basically the equivalent of days, but it was in our time not that much time. He slipped through time. And he asked her, "How do you do this?" And she said, "Well, we put our ship in your mountain in a different frequency so that they can both be in the same time and place." So you hear about the hollow earth situation, and you hear about like caves that can hold like bigger than New York City. And whenever I hear that, the geologist in me goes, I'm not sure if entire civilizations can live right under the ground. And I think about the temperature, like I get very physically minded on this. But when you say, oh, a different frequency in the same place, I'm like, oh yeah, well that actually makes sense. And there are, I mean, they're finding caves now that like the glaciers are all retreating. They're finding these massive caves where entire cities could fit into. So, so it could be a bit of one, bit of another, or a combination therein of the two, or creating a pocket in space. We've already seen how portals can open up and hold massive quantities of product. If Michael can open his mouth and literally hundreds of crystals will come pouring out, then I'm sure we can make a pocket of space where an entire city will exist. So I'll tell you, getting on the political side of this, some of the things that I know about the corruption of not just our government, many governments, but definitely our government, it's extremely disturbing. Um, it's really scary. And these reptilians, many of them are taking over the bodies of people. Since I grew up in DC,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's some really, like, I don't want to put disturbing images in your mind, but there's things I know about that, if I told you about, you would have really bad nightmares tonight and be very upset with me. So you don't want to know. Um, but it is happening. And it gets repressed by the news. Sometimes little things pop up here and there, but no one makes the connection between them. But there's some very, very disturbing things happening in our government. I'm all for anarchy. I'm all for just like bombing the whole thing and starting over. But
So it almost sounds like that
it is absolutely.
so is that, are we gonna see that, because it seems as though things are moving more at a faster pace,
Hmm.
so are we gonna see it in this generation, and
Yes.
what can we do as light workers? I mean, can we even, I guess, will good defeat evil?
Well, that's the good news. Good will always defeat evil. If it'll happen on this planet or not, I'm not sure. But there are resources we have around us at all times that we're not necessarily aware of. So how can we make use of? One thing is because Earth is so dense, it's become a little bit also of like a prison for light beings of other dimensions. If you have, say, a collective, and there's one being in the collective that's maybe not with the picture, they might just like boot them to Earth because the dimension, it's so dense here, they can't get out. And there's also like sometimes in petty wars, they'll like, there are a number of light beings.
So we're hearing.
We're all seeing Trump's face, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
we're trapped here, and then they send people to.
All right, so
Well,
what do we do?
well, what I'm saying is some of these beings that are trapped here are good beings,
Right.
and they just need a little love and light, and they can be very helpful. So there's a lot of trapped light beings that can't get out of here that will be happy to help us raise the vibration so they can get out. A lot of them. So just feel welcome to connect, raise the vibration without thought.
How do you do that?
Meditation is good. I always tell people at any given time, just like relax the top of your head, relax your feet. And the more you relax your feet, the more the top of your head can open up. And you become a divine conduit. And you can let your higher self and your guides will just send the energy straight through you to Earth.
Will they put the people that need that boost in your path? Like our gods and angels,
Yeah.
do that?
Do you all work with your guides? Okay. So, you can have as many guides as you want. You've got your basic guides, like your guardian angel, your higher self, your soul family, who they watch over you when you're in body, and your higher self is watching over you. Your higher self and the rest of your soul family is also watching over everyone else. You have your animal spirit guides. You have whatever guides are feeling very connected to you. Um, I'm seeing you got a lot of fairies around you, so that's very interesting. And you've got like a blue angel. She's like blue and sparkly, and um, she's sending you a lot of love right now. A lot of love.
It's
And
funny because a lot of times when in readings, I see like a beautiful eye, I don't get to see the whole thing, and a lot of times it just vibrates like
yeah,
I was wondering if that was me.
yeah, yeah. So we have all these beautiful beings here to help us and to send energy through us into Earth. And we can send energy into the physical Earth. Every single race of beings on our planet has an energetic mandala. I've been doing a lot of work lately with the elephant mandalas because they're trying to decide whether or not they even want to stay on our planet or if they're going to leave and go elsewhere. The polar bears are seriously planning on becoming a new species that's underwater. So they're watching the new life forms that are evolving underwater, waiting for one that they're, and you look and you're like, where's the polar bears? Where'd they go? Like within one generation, they'll be gone. And the same with the elephants, but they're thinking of leaving planet because they're much too divine for what's going on here, and it's hurting their vibration too much. So with the meditation, you can tap into these sort of things. Um, if you ever get a chance to meet very holy people, like the Tibetan monks or gurus, yogis, anyone who's very divine and holy, spend some time with them. Go to their events. If they're having an event where there's 1,000 people, be one of those 1,000. Because the more you connect with the energy, the more the energy you go, and the energy that came into you, it stays with you and it connects further and further. So these are really important. Groups like this are very important to remind you that you're more than just your daily life. You are a divine being with a purpose. You're an eternal being. Each of us, we're eternal beings. We came here for a reason. And I know that everyone sitting in this room, one reason we're here on this planet is to help with the vibration. Otherwise, you would not have been drawn here, to this wellness center and to this event. Other things you can do is nature and animal advocacy, of course. Speak your truth. Always speak your truth. And if you're in a situation where you cannot speak your truth out loud, live your truth, feel it, let your truth radiate from you. Don't hide your truth. As for Trump, there's something going on. Like when we tap in, yeah, I know. Yeah, there's something going on there. Okay, where he, like a lot of the archangels are like, how did he win? He wasn't supposed to win. He wasn't. So it'll be interesting to see if this whole Russian messing with the elections thing, if they're able to prove that Russia did mess with the elections and he wasn't supposed to win, or that Russia did mess with the elections and get a list of all the people who were in the know of it. That will be interesting to see how that will affect our government. Well, I'll tell you, I'm staying far away from DC as much as I can.
Well, I'm going
Yeah.
there. I'm like thinking, I really don't want to go down there. So
Yeah.
here's the thing though, is, people everywhere now are really saying, what can we do with them? We're scared.
Yes, we are.
And he's a wild card completely. What can we do? Everyday people, light workers, all the people that care about maintaining 5 more minutes of the earth. Okay. What can we do?
So here's the thing. Trump is a wild card, but he's not the power in the office. The people who are in power in DC, they don't care who's president. They're going to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, like McConnell.
Exactly. Now, I'll tell you, before I became a light worker, when I was a chef, I worked at a lot of very fancy events. I worked with some of the top chefs in the world. And these people who are very wealthy or powerful, they don't think that their staff, is smart enough to hear what they're saying. Some of the things that I saw as a chef at like formal events at Kennedy Center and stuff like that, I was like, oh my God, these people are all awful, 100%. And it's our taxpayers' money that's supporting them to play this game. They don't even care about the country. It's their game that they do. Now, there are some good politicians. There are. And they're working really hard and they're being really honest. They're just in the minority. It is. So what's happening with Trump now is at least bringing some of this to the public light. That people are going to say, hey, wait a minute, my politician doesn't care about me. Hey, wait a minute, How come I don't have health insurance and they have great insurance and they think I don't deserve health insurance? Like, this is all starting to come to light. It is coming out. What can we do? Join like the energetic mandalas that are there. If you send love and light to those that are like really corrupt, that will be really exhausting for you. There are some who are constantly sending love and light to the politicians, to ISIS, to all of these. You could join energy with them, like the Tibetan monks. They're great. Join with them because then you won't be one alone. So you can join with them with their energy of love and light. Yes. I tell people send love and light to those around you and encourage them to send love and light. Because if everyone is sending love and light to those around them, then that will go and go and go and go till finally, like, the politicians and the terrorists will be surrounded by so much love and light that they'll become overtaken. Exactly.
I just feel like I want to just become a Viking all of a sudden. Just like start attacking the reptilians.
Yeah, yeah. Do daily cord cutting ceremony. This is very important. A cord cutting ceremony, we have lines of energy that connects us to everything. And you know how there's some people when you're around them, they just exhaust you, and other people, they make you vibrant? So a cord cutting is where you go into a meditative state and you look into your hand. There's always going to be something that will cut. Always. For me, it's a huge flaming sword. I have a friend, for him, it's a tiny pair of sewing scissors because when his mother was a seamstress. So it will be whatever implement is in your hand. And you cut all the cords around you. Cords of love can never be cut, they can only be strengthened and magnified. Cords of non love will be cut. Um, when I do a cord cutting ceremony for myself, I generally take myself to the Bardo, the Twilight Realm, which is a land between physical and spiritual. This is a place where if you call anyone to you, their soul is contractually obligated to be there. So if I need to cut a cord between myself and someone else, I'll do it in this place in a ceremony, and then I'm no longer energetically connected to this person. Every time you do it, the cords might look different from relationship to relationship. They might look like lines of light. They may look like roots. They might look like poison ivy, depending on, or depending on the relationship. Or if you have a loving relationship with someone and there is some discord there, you can do a cord cutting, and the love is magnified. The discord is dismissed. Whenever I get together with my siblings in advance, I do a cord cutting ceremony. It makes such a difference. I'll tell you, they don't know what I'm doing, but it makes a difference. Exactly. Now you might find they'll try to send the energy back to you to reconnect. You got to like keep it cut. Exactly. Um, so cord cuttings are very good because then you're magnifying your love connections to everyone, and that grows the love. You're also cutting away that which brings you distress.
You're just cutting the bad cords, not the good
You cut all the cords, but the cutting action of cords of, like, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Cords of love are never cut. Love cannot be severed. They remain and they become more love. They become magnified. Discord, non-love, that gets cut away. I once did a phone session with someone and she was just like exhausting. And I finally said, I can't help you. I couldn't help her. The things that she wanted and demanded were beyond what I could give her. And I told her I'd direct her to someone else. I gave her someone else to go to. And she was so angry. She was like screaming at me. And, sometimes people need physical or psychiatric help for what they think is a spiritual issue. And with her, it was a psychiatric thing as well as spiritual. And I could help with the spiritual, but with the psychiatric there. So as soon as we got off the phone, I could feel her like just still there. So I did a cord cutting ceremony, and it was like I could hear her screaming, "No, don't you dare!" Like I could hear it. And then I got this text from her, "How dare you cut me off from you? I know what you just did." Like she could feel it. And I was like, yeah, so it's powerful.
That's not good.
Well, I didn't work with her after that.
Oh, okay.
I was like, yeah, but that's the thing, it has an effect. And the reason I mention this is we wonder what is we as energetic healers, as light workers can do. Our energy has an effect. So the more you feel love and send a feeling of love, the more you are nourishing the planet to feel love. And this is really, it sounds like so little, and it's so much. It's so much. I have,
You can also do that with the earth. You know.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can send love to Earth, Earth love. I forgot my book, The Bringers of the Light, which is about the Pleidians. But these are two wonderful books I'd like to pass around. One, The Pleiadian Agenda. It's absolutely beautiful. And then the other one, Raising Our Vibrations for a New Planet. This was written, Raising Our Vibrations was written in 2012, I think, when she thought certain things would happen in 2012, but they're happening now. So it's relevant to read now, but you have to like move the dates.
What happened about that? I read some other books in 2012. They said it was going to happen. It's happening now. So I just figured it was because they aren't out here. They were in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Or an energetic something happened.
Isn't that the Mexican? Wasn't that?
Or the
Well-
timeline's off because of the way they track it versus us. But it was funny because it was definitely in 2012.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Is
It's
this the
happening.
earth ending stuff? That every
No, it's
10
not the
minutes
Earth
they-
ending. It's about the vibration. It's about the vibration coming up. The Earth's not going to end.
Well, I know that, but
But-
I get sick of reading that it's gonna end.
Yeah, no, it's
Every
not
10
going to end.
minutes.
But it's about raising the vibration of the planet. It's a really beautiful book, Raising the Vibration. The Pleiadian Agenda, The Bringers of the Light is a beautiful, beautiful book. So, yeah, that's a great book. No, The Bringers of the Light. So things that we can do to make a difference is be proud of being a light worker. Don't feel the need to hide it. Now,
It's still very.
it is very taboo. Now, of course, don't get yourself in trouble, but be proud of it. And like, yeah, for me, since I used to be someone who went into hospital kitchens and redefined them into a healthier kitchen, and I spoke about nutrition, to now talk about this, I have a number of people kind of stepped away from me. It's amazing how many people step back, though. But up here in New England, I don't know. I think in Virginia, you have meditation centers and wellness centers like every block, and yoga centers. So, we can be a little more.
Not as much here.
No. So you need to feel your reality. Let's see. Drumming ceremonies are always good. I don't know how many drumming ceremonies you have here, but they're really great at getting the energy up and opening the connections. Kathleen knows more about your local drumming ceremonies than I do, but I don't know how much you have here or how open they are to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may be very closed. I don't know.
There's not a lot.
Oh, we got drumming ceremonies all over the place in Virginia.
Really?
Yes. Well, what's interesting is a decade ago, we didn't have any of this. But about 5 years ago, wellness centers started popping up everywhere around DC. Everywhere around.
Where it's needed.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. But now a lot of us are like heading out. We're like, I can't take it anymore. No, get me out of here. But what's interesting is, like, for me, I sold my wellness center and now I'm traveling. And I'm amazed with how many people this year are selling their wellness centers and traveling and doing presentations around the country and around the world. So energetically, I think there is something happening here. I think the biggest thing that we can each do is really feel what skills or talents you wish to grow and evolve. Don't just be a dilettante with your Lightbringer work. And granted, I know we all have jobs and families and children and responsibilities and all of that. So that has to be honored. That's part of our experience on this planet. But if you hear me talk about channeling and it resonates with you, then open yourself up to this. Contact people who do it and say, how can I do this? Because honestly, any one of us can do anything we want. I teach classes on spoon bending and small object levitation. In my all the time I've taught this, I've only ever had one person who couldn't do it. And this was like a man who just didn't want to. He's like, I just want to be here. I don't want to do it. Everyone else is sitting there like bending spoons and feathers floating in our hands. So I can do that in the springtime. I can come back here and do
That'd
that.
be
That would
cool.
be fun. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really amazing.
I always tried that in school.
Yeah. Yeah. Telekinesis is the only thing difficult is finding the time to practice it. And that's the only reason I'm not teaching spoon bending now. I've been so busy with everything that I don't have faith in my ability I need to get back in the groove of it. But, there are people who levitate their entire bodies up just with a thought, and they're sitting there floating in the air. I've seen people do this. I myself have levitated like an inch or two above the ground. One time I was doing an energy healing on a person, and they're lying on the table, and I'm going around, and I realized I was gliding in the air around the table because the energy of what we're doing was so powerful that my feet were not moving. I was just like gliding around. I know, and then I was like, wow, and I was like, don't yeah.
You do go right down as soon as you recognize that it's happening.
Exactly.
I did. I was on the Holder Reservation in somebody's house, and we were having a real experience. And I just happened to look down at that chair. First I looked at my husband, then I looked down, and we were at least a foot off the ground. And I felt like, oh shit, I'm and I felt like it went down. I could actually feel that. And we were just high for hours and hours and hours after that experience. Amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very. One of the most unique experiences I ever had. Didn't even know.
Exactly.
It just was happening. I just didn't know. Yeah.
And that's the thing. What can you do? Recognize and bring into your everyday life the fact that things are only as they are because we recognize them as such. Things are only solid because we define it that way. Things are only stay on the ground because we say they do, because we believe in gravity. Before gravity existed, everyone could float around and do anything. As I said, I have full recollection of all my lives. So I know things that happened in past lives that don't happen now. There's always something. There's always something. For me, because I have full memory, but in this life I need to have this life's experience, I might feel like there's someone I knew, but I don't know who they were. But if we sit together, like we have a mutual friend, Diane, and one day she and I were sitting there talking about past lives we lived, and we realized there was one life that we were sisters together because we were like sharing the same stories, but from a different perspective. And she's like, I had this one sister, she went on to do this. I don't know why she did that. I'm like, I had another sister, she made a choice to do this. And I felt so bad. And wait, and we're both so happy with our life choices that it was like finally we're able to resolve the fact that we're like, oh, I never had to worry about you after all. You were fine. Okay. Yeah. But no, if I recognize people from our past life, it would be hard for me to have a present life relationship with them. And so I'm actually bad at recognizing people in this life from one time I see them to another, or even remembering their names. And then sometimes, like, I'll say a name will pop out, and it's like a name of theirs from a past life, whether I knew them or not. So because sometimes people's past lives are just like hanging around, and I see it. So yeah, Sometimes I'm walking along, and someone's past life will be like, "Hey, tell them I'm here. Tell them about me. Tell them I'm here." And I'm like, "Oh God, I have to walk up to a stranger and say." This will sound weird, but yeah. So things we can do in our everyday life. We know that things can appear out of nowhere. And I already told you, if I'm missing things, I call to them and they'll appear on my table. In a past life, if I wanted something, I would hold out my hand and it would go flying into it. This was a few thousand years ago. Yes.
So let me ask you a question. So 2 birthdays ago, I was living in the mill in some sort. So I said to my parents in spirit, I want you to send me a feather for my birthday. So all day, looking for feathers. It's January. I'm not seeing any feathers. And I'm like, we went out to dinner. So we're coming back. We're in a hall like this with no windows on the 4th floor. And honest to God, I'm standing in front of the door. Rod's unlocking the door. Right by my face. In the hall. So is this...
That's your parents?
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah.
But this is what you're talking about, materializing out of nowhere. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Very cool.
It is.
Very cool.
Yeah, they imported it from their dimension to yours.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 But I'll tell you, one downside of learning apportation, and I'm like still new at it, and the guy that I want to teach me is in the Northwest, like Washington or Oregon State, and we don't have time to talk, so I'm kind of self-teaching, so I have weird things happen. Like I was at a shop, and it was on the top floor with several floors of parking garage beneath it. And I was parked in the top parking garage floor. So I took the escalator down from the shop. It was a Target. A friend and I met for lunch, and then afterwards we went to buy something at Target before we dispersed. So I took the escalator down one floor. I went out. I'm looking for my car. Where's my car? I don't know. It's nowhere. I'm freaking out. I went back and looked. I'd gone down 2 floors. I'm like, how'd I get down 2 floors? I know the escalator, and there's no way to accidentally go down 2 floors from there. So when for me now, I'm like, I need to start really focusing on this and learn it a little better. My son and I were driving from our home to Williamsburg, Virginia. And so we took 495 and we went down 95 South. And then the next thing we knew, we're at Reagan National Airport, which is where 95, 295, and GW Parkway meet. And I was like, Xander, didn't you see me take 95 South? And he's like, yeah, Springfield ahead. And I was like, how do we get here in the exact opposite? There's no way. It is physically impossible. So now I have to really have my wits about me a little more. I can't just be like spacing out. Like when I drive, I have to be very aware. Maybe if I get better at this, then I can go to the Northwest and study with this guy. So things that we can do. Start working on your skills. Connect with your higher self. Talk with your higher self. Find out, are you only you in this life? Or are you also living anywhere else on the planet right now? Maybe right now you're a baby in some place, you're an old person someplace, or there's a fellow who's like 20 years younger than me. and we're brother and sister of the same soul, and maybe it's like 25 years younger. We have nothing in common, absolutely nothing. He doesn't believe in any of this, but we just love each other so much. We are like, anytime he needs anything, I'm like right there. I'm the first person he calls, and we don't know why. I mean, I know why. He doesn't, because he doesn't believe in this stuff.
Is he your real brother?
No,
Oh,
no, he's a stranger I met one day, and we've just been like,
close ever since?
yeah, yeah, like brother and sister ever since. Yeah, and
So you know that you guys are brother and sister.
we're not brother and sister. We're of the same soul. We're like two parts. Our higher selves are made of energy. Energy can be divided infinitely. So our higher self sent me down to be born, and then some years later sent him down to be born.
This is very interesting to me because I did a journey once. I have a spirit guide who is always with me. And I asked him, because I know we were in a life together before, are you in this life now? And he said, parts of me are in parts of people that you know. So this is what you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Fascinating.
Basically. And we're not always just one soul in one body. Sometimes we have shards of other souls with us. Or is we come here for a reason, right? We're not just here to, well, sometimes the reason is to goof around. I had 3 hard lives. I'm lying in a hammock this life,
That's my kind of
Oh, yeah.
Find me at the beach.
Exactly.
Exactly where I'll be.
But so suppose I'm going to a life to have a challenge that I'm having a rough time with. I might say, Kathleen, you're really good at this. Can you send a splinter of your soul with me to help me with it? And she's like, I'll do more than that. I'm going to, like, 10% of you will be me. Let's make sure you fly through this. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. So, when I do past life readings for people, sometimes I'll say, oh, it was just like 40% of that body was you. Or, so, but I feel like me.
Is that like maybe some, because I seem to meet a lot of people that are just lost. Is it maybe that they gave too much of themselves or split or, it's almost like they're just.
They may be off their path. We have, before we come to life, we plan out certain things will happen. We make contracts to meet with people along the way. We have goals. And if you wander off your path, then you're like lost. So that happens sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a ground. Don't you think sometimes they're just not in their bodies, and sometimes they just ground. They just walk.
Oh yeah.
They're airy. They're just not there. They're just not in their bodies. So just
Well, you remember?
Ask. I just do it. It's like prayer for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Hey, how you feeling now? But my daughter had a friend, and I had the hardest time interacting with her. She just wasn't there. And I'd walk away, and I'd be like, what was that? And then I saw her recently. I'm like, what happened to you? Because she's fully in her body now. Well, and things she did, but it was huge, and I love to be with her now. I was like, I am so glad to see that you're present. And so I don't know what but it was that, and I had it right, but it's all you can just go. What do you think about her? Do you think she's not there or something? And my husband, he's hardly ever home. He's home. He's physically just in my way. But he's just not there.
Right.
And so I don't ground him. I mean, I'm working on that. I'm not sure I'm supposed to. But now as I do my work, I can track that better. It's very discombobulating because of that, because you're aware. So I find airports to just be horrible because so many people, all the ones that are in your way, they're just not there.
Right.
There's a whole, and so that's what he does for work. So I'm realizing how impaired he is because of his job.
Oh yeah.
Because we weren't doing work. He's had an accumulation of airports for a very long time. Yeah. And I didn't know this work, so I'm like, I think he needs work.
Yeah.
to undo. But that's why they're just not they're not in their body.
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of people who think like, oh, if I'm going to be spiritual, then I don't want to be grounded and they don't understand. Like I was saying before, relax your feet. The more you relax your feet, the more your crown will open. Like if you want to make sure everything's flowing, do the feet, do the crown, or, usually we start with the crown. That's easier than relax the feet. Expand the crown, expand the feet, and then check all systems go. How's it going? How's it flowing? Oh, there's a little block here. Okay, open it up. Good. But these people are like, yeah, they're hard to work with because yeah, people need to ground. Otherwise, we're just floating around like helium balloons.
Or are we not supposed to?
I mean, you can, but it won't stick till they learn to it. One of the most powerful healers I work with, this fellow Joey, when we first started working together, he was free floating. I taught him how to ground, and now he's just like incredibly, like a few years later, he's just like so powerful, so powerful. Like the difference was immediate and then constantly growing. Like now I go to him, Joey, teach me how to do this, teach me how to do this. He's just like so amazing. But yeah.
I think that's one of the things my daughters are all doing it, and we've all concluded the first thing we teach anyone new to energy is, and we have different grounding papers. So depending on where they're at, we'll pull, even if it's just anchor the light is love, keep it very simple, and just anchor it or drop an anchor from your heart all the way into the center of the earth. It can be that simple. Or we can go into like a prayer, but that is, we concluded, the first thing we can do to help anyone, because you can hit them on any level. They can be religious, they can do this. You just kind of have to change your words out a bit.
Right.
Just teach them how to ground and figure it. We never see them again, we give them the gift. Because that's what someone did for me, and it was huge. It saved me. Yeah. And then the interesting thing with that, though, was as I grounded and started realizing I was energetic and could pull my energy out, cord cutting. I didn't know it was that at the time, though. To this day, my husband will tell me, for a whole year, you just weren't. I was physically there every single day. In his mind, you were never there. You were not there. And it took me a long time to what is he talking about? I'm like, oh, he was so used to being attached to me that when I cut those cords, he didn't know what that was, but if he feels it as a memory, and then his mind just wasn't there. Pretty sure was.
Wow.
Dinner, cat boxes, but it took me a long time to convert that, and that was his memory of it, and that's when I learned how to contain myself and not bring it back and just keep cutting. And it was so that one I didn't say, you didn't want to know.
And you can use the cord cutting to purposefully strengthen love cords.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. But this was more of a, it was just learning. It was
right.
The topic was probably vampire energy vampires. Not him specifically, but just as I did my work, people. But it's funny how that's what they say. I was home.
Absolutely.
Didn't travel, and in his mind, it was not there.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So, but that's what we found, and what we just decided. So many people, just anyone, teach them to ground. And
that's actually
know.
Yeah, that's a really good thing, because if you're not grounded, your energy is not helping the planet. So if you help people ground, if you come across a lot of free floating people and you work with them to ground and become divine conduits, then that helps a lot. That helps an awful lot. So I want to talk about some of the beings that are out there that we can connect with and how we can connect with them. You can start doing meditation to open yourself up for beings of higher frequencies to connect with you. The higher you raise your frequency, the higher the beings of that vibration. Like, the more you raise your personal vibration, the more you can connect with high frequency beings. is you want to make sure you don't connect with a reptilian or something licky. So you're like, oh, well, I want to open myself up to connect with someone of a certain vibration and higher and you always want to protect yourself with words of like, for my best and highest good and my best and highest care and well-being and my most joyous state of being. I want to connect with those of the angelic vibration and higher. But in order to connect with them, you have to get your vibration very high. But they want to connect with us. They have a desire to. As you become more comfortable connecting with them, you need to be receptive with however they will come to you. So it might be an emotion. It might be a thought, a random thought in your head, or feeling like someone's whispering in your ear, or it might be a vision, or it might be some weird non sequitur. However it is, or if you're walking down the street and a butterfly goes in front of you and you're like, oh, was that a message or a feather falling down? Or you have an impulse to smell a beautiful flower and you don't know why. Just know that this is, anytime you have in your mind, is that a message? That's them trying to let you know this is a message, this is a message. So the answer is always yes. And the more you open yourself up to the answer yes, the more they can give you messages, the more you're like, wait, I just had a message. This is another message? Oh, another message? Until you start going in the flow of messages and you actually will feel a palpable like change in your vibration. And like it raises up, not just for a moment, like hitting that peak, it raises up. It keeps going higher and higher. And it's like you hit that good chunk where you're at the next level and suddenly information comes to you more freely. At that point, you start going, okay, who's giving me the information? Because there is so many beings out there. And then you start getting to know individual races and beings. If you have a specific kind of being, like Lemuirans and Pleidians are always dying to talk with us. Oh my God. They want to help so bad. Read books on Lemuirans, read books on Pleiadians. If you want to do angelic work and work with the archangels, become one more with them. And there are a few books, Essays of the Light by Erin Michelle and Pam Galito. And her website, her Facebook page, Erin is an amazing divine conduit. She channels the Council of Archangels, the Council of Light, the Council of the Highest Order.
What's her last name?
Galito, Galito. First name Erin, Erin. And I'm not sure, her middle name is Michelle, so I'm not sure if she currently goes by Erin Michelle or Erin Galito. But I believe her book is Essays of the Light, and it's basically, each chapter is like 1, 2, or 3 pages, and it's like messages channeled from the councils. And they're really beautiful, and they're all about raising your vibration. She has a wonderful Facebook page that sends like little inspirations and things like that. So the more you raise your vibration, you can connect with these light beings. They're easier to connect with for most people than alien races on other planets. But if you have ever lived with an alien race on another planet, they may already be here hovering over you, trying to connect. So if you find you're suddenly connecting with the Pleiadians and you don't know why, there's always a reason why. You already have a connection with them.
So how do they identify themselves differently than, for instance, Lemurian energy or angel or any of that? How do you know?
It's going to be a different feeling. And as you learn to communicate with them, they'll let you know who they are. And you may, and each of us senses differently. So if you're an extremely visual person, you may see them. for me, nearly 2 years ago, after a lifetime of total lucid state, like when I close my eyes, I see whatever I wish to see, easy enough to hop into other dimensions. When I look through the room, I could see everyone's lines of energy, your auric field, pocket dimensions around whatever light beings were around. Early December 2 years ago, all of that stopped overnight. I woke up one morning and it was just 3D world, and I closed my eyes and I just see black. Um, this was done to me by some of these friendly alien, not friendly, that was sarcastic, like some of these reptilian type alien beings in an effort to stop me from the work I'm doing. It literally felt like someone had thrown a sack over my head, tied me up, and rolled me in a carpet and stuffed me in the trunk of a car. Um, no, it was awful. I was in such a panic because, like, I didn't know how to relate to anything without my sight. But then I said, well, what if I was a regular seeing person and my eyes went blind on me? What would I do? I'd use my other senses. So I started using my other senses. And now it's interesting when I'm with very, very, like, very high holy people, because oftentimes they'll see my third eye. While it's forward, it's also upward. My third eye and crown work together. And there have been plenty of experiences over the last 2 years in relation to this. But this is part of what really helped me with my channeling. I said, you know what? I'm having trouble breaking out of what's around me, but I can blast what's above and below, because my higher self is up there, and source is up there, and the angels are up there. Gaia and all the earth magic and the earth spirits are below. I can blast to them. So I became a conduit, and then the channeling of the councils and all of them became more powerful. So it's less fun for me, but it's more helpful for everyone else. This was not the intention of those that did this to me. Um, but I don't care what their intention is. I'm going to do what I do.
So the good
Hmm?
So the good
Yeah. Yeah. And so these reptilian beings have put a mark on my son and myself. And we're actually, we've been mandated by my guides for us to go to, they said, just go to New Mexico and Arizona, find an ancient shaman, and they'll remove it. They'll scramble this tag that was put on us. And, but ever since this tag was put on my son, he's been in danger. Wherever we go, he's in danger. So we're working on getting it off. But we always control what's inside us. No matter what people do around us, we control what's inside us, and we can blast it out. And that's very important to remember. No one is the master of your heart but yourself. Well, I'm not a big battle of good versus evil. It really is kind of going on. There's some that live in a denser vibration. They want it to stay that way. You know, if anyone's ever had a friend or family member who's very, very depressed, and they just want to lie on their sofa and wallow, and you show up, come on, let's go outside and enjoy the fresh air. And eventually you have to leave because their house smells so bad because they haven't bathed in 2 weeks, and there's like beer cans everywhere and dirty plates. You know, in a way, that's sort of what planet Earth is like right now. It's the depressed person on the sofa. But we're going to blast it open, because there's all these amazing light beings out there that want to connect with us. Okay, they want me to tell you how humans incarnate versus beings of a higher evolution is we go through the whole life cycle. But if you were to spend one life with, say, the angels, say you're like, oh, you know what, this life I'll be in the angelic realm for a while. All that happens is your higher self sends energy to the angelic realm, and you take the form of an angel, and you're there in the angelic realm as an angel doing angelly things until you decide it's time to return to your higher self. So you're not born like an angel baby and you go through angel suckling period and angel daycare. It's not like that. So we can travel to these other dimensions, like learning to get to the Akashic Library is a good way to get there. And if you go to the Akashic Library, don't just read your book. Tell your librarian you want to see what else there is. You want loaner books. You want public access books. They have places there where like beings from all dimensions get together and hang out and share information. Let your librarian know you want to go to these places. This really helps to connect with these beings and imprint on them. And if your librarian says you're not ready for it, say, what do I need to do to get my vibration ready for it? If he says, oh, you can't go to the angel library, like, well, send a book, a loaner book from the angel library to me. And he'll let you know if your vibration is up enough or what you need to do to get your vibration there.
The librarian will?
Yeah. Yeah. They're very helpful with that.
Now, how do you go there for meditation?
Yeah. And if you go on my website or my YouTube page, I've got so many. They're not well organized. I apologize for that. But it's my hope this year to get a whole series of them better organized.
And YouTube videos? Or?
Yeah, I have like 120 videos on YouTube, and they're all free and accessible.
So we just YouTube your name and it pops up?
Yeah.
I was new to YouTube almost every night before I go to sleep. But I didn't know, I just did who comes up.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I can do that.
If you're listening to it when you go to sleep, listen to like solfeggio music or binaural beats from like Monroe Institute or hemi-sync from Monroe Institute or binaural beats music, and that really raises your vibration while you sleep. Or you can listen to like Tibetan bowls with solfeggio tones and get like an 8-hour one, so the whole night you're sleeping, this is going. That really gets your vibe up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it really helps with like connecting. Now, if you want to connect with alien beings on a more physical way of like shaking their hand and chatting with them, first you want to get your vibe up. I remember one time when I was in college, a friend of mine, Erin, said, hey, you want to go ride on a spaceship? I'm going to go ride on a spaceship tonight. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm up for anything. And so we went out to this field near the college by an old quarry with the apple orchards. We're laying in the field, and I'm thinking a spaceship is going to land and we're going to get on it. I'm very trusting. And we're laying in the field, and the next thing I knew, our consciousness was projected into a light ship. And I could see him beside me. And there were these beings. They were in a ship made of light, and there was beings made of light. And they were so kind to us, and they talked with us. They showed us around, and then it was time to send us back in our bodies. And we were both back in our bodies, lying on the field, and we both sat up and looked at each other at the same time. And we were like, we had the exact same experience. Like, we knew what each other had said and done and everything. So we were like, we were really there. And I felt like it was such a ripoff because I wanted a 3D ship and we just got this light ship. I was very upset. And he said, well, you think aliens only travel in flying saucers? I'm like, that would be nice. Bring one over here. So be prepared for whatever form alien life appears. But the more you get your vibe up, the more you're someone that the more 3D aliens can connect with. Now, there are, like, I know a person who's an alien in a human body, and she's wonderful. She's an amazing healer. She's part of a collective, and they chose her to come and spend life in a human body.
So is she married?
Well, she's not married yet, no kids, but because she's younger.
Oh,
But she has full connection with her collective. She has full understanding. She is the most powerful healer. She's such an amazing person. And she's having a regular 3D life experience. She has a boyfriend, but she's all, and she has a career. And she is here on our planet helping the planet. She works with special needs children because they're, of course, the next generation of humanity. All of these like spectrum kids that are all heart centered. They're just look at humanity 100 years from now will be like so much of that. Well, we just have these like bullseyes on our backs that we got to get off because it's exhausting. But no, she's not marked by anything because she's truly divine.
Okay,
Me. Yeah, I'm a schlub. But I have no idea how that happened. I have no idea. They fully encased me. I was fully encased, but I managed to blast it. And when I talk sometimes with people who have like amazing sight, they'll say, it's so strange. It's like there's a microfiber of darkness all around you. Everything inside is great. Everything outside is great, but there's a layer of black. I don't know what it is. It's like you're in a wine bottle, but because the bottom is wider than the top, but there's a hole at the bottom and a hole at the top. I'm like, oh yeah, it's my prison. I have no idea why. But I do know aliens did it because I've had too many visions and it's strange because I close my eyes and it's all black, but it's like if I could see, I know I would be seeing it, and I don't have the memory of seeing it, even though I don't see it.
but why can't dispel it on your own?
I wish I could. I don't know why. As soon as I get rid of it,
All the knowledge that you have, we're always, when we ground and protect ourselves, I don't ever feel like anything can come into me that I say
exactly,
no about.
exactly.
So,
I have no idea.
but I've heard people say, yes, I feel like they're in my room, or I feel like they're in my house, and they're scaring the kids and all of that.
Mhm.
And, we work hard to have them protect themselves and the light and
Mhm.
totems and everything else, and we feel like that's gonna.
It's my understanding that what happened to me happens to a lot of people. You have people who just refuse to believe anything. Or maybe and you're like, what happened to you? You used to be so like amazing, and now you're just like, ugh. I think that a lot of them get encircled like I did, but but I blasted my way out. Exactly. And it's part of my job now to help rescue those who have been,
What's wrong with my husband?
could be, Trump, yeah, mm,
And I'm thinking, wow, maybe that's what's wrong with him. Something, it's more, I know it's more than a physical problem.
okay, this I can answer. I grew up with migraines, and a lot of very spiritual, intuitive people get migraines. You know how sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, I feel the energy. I feel spirit coming because I'm getting pressure on my third eye. I'm getting pressure in my
It's
head."
always there.
Yeah, the pressure is because the energy is not flowing and it's building up, like a really bad sinus headache from spirit. So you need to get his energy flowing completely. Reiki will work. Mindfulness meditation is really good for this because, yeah, with mindfulness, you are aware of things, but you take no action. I wake up every morning with a migraine, and every morning I do some mindfulness and I let energy flow. And I learned that trick from other people, but usually these intense migraines are an indicator of a very spiritual person who's blocking their energy. So, yeah.
It's just no, we've tried everything. Every doctor
Hmm.
to cure it with
Right.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah. And if your husband is not all woo woo, you might start with mindfulness meditation for technical reasons. Like start with the low hanging fruit and then grow from there. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Good luck with that. Yeah. Um, so, yeah. So for this thing around me, if I knew how to get rid of it, it would be gone. But I've been coping with it, but I know it will be gone at some point because it can't contain me. Nothing can contain me forever. Um, but there are things that now for Trump, it's my understanding that he's pretty much more reptilian than human right now, and he's like on a leash. You know, he's not the leader. He's the puppet. Yeah. He's diverting our attention while they're doing all the real bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and it's crazy. It's like they're getting crazier and crazier. Like the people who say, "Oh, I'm shoplifting. Oh, no one noticed, so I'm going to shop," and until they're walking out of the store with a whole shopping cart of stuff, waving, "Hey, I'm leaving shoplifting now." It's like they're going so crazy with this. Like they're seeing, wondering how audacious can they get before Americans go, "Wait a minute, I'm paying for this." Yeah.
It's, those things that they've been showing with the airplanes and they're paying all this money for trips and stuff. It's like people are becoming aware of it,
Hmm.
but it's like, how do you fix it? People
Right.
are all asking.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, for connecting with aliens, connect with aliens in whatever form they bring themselves to you, but keep your vibration very high so that you don't get the nasty ones. You know, the reason I had issues is because I am so public and so out there. I'm very outspoken. I'm teaching people, I'm training people, I'm healing people.
So you're gathering
Yeah, I'm working with like very divine beings who are doing work. They got me just before I hit my big part of the work. So they were trying to stop me before I got big, but they didn't. And, and again, like it doesn't matter to me how I sense, you know, because the divine is out there. And when I say the divine, I'm talking about life, the universe, the different dimensions. Go to sacred places and meditate and feel the energy. Out where I live in Winchester, Virginia, there's a place called the Land Celebration Center. And when I go there and meditate, this is a place where energy pathways cross each other, meridians cross each other, and you can feel how sacred it is, how powerfully sacred. And when I go there and I meditate, the last time I was there, I could feel how there were eternal beasts that were like sleeping in the ground there in a slightly different frequency in the earth because they were just enjoying the feeling of this place. And because of that, the plants that grew were extraordinary, just extraordinary and unusual for that area. Um, so if you go to places like this and really refresh yourself and connect, then tap in. Because what are eternal creatures in a different frequency but a form of what we call alien? You know, tap in and connect with them, feel their energy, and feel their energy, let their energy come into you, and always the high vibrational beings. If you have friends who or acquaintances who want you to help them, but they're sucking the energy out of you, become someone. The way you help people is to hold your hand out and let them raise themselves up to your hand. Don't drain your energy by leaning forward because the the dark aliens, the dense aliens, if they see you're coming to light, they will send so many people to you for help that will just suck you dry, and then your light never goes up. So make sure that you're nourishing your light and teaching others by letting them raise themselves up to your light. Yeah.
It's creepy that you have to like try to be
Yeah. Yeah. And about the darkness around me, by the way, just to answer your question, how could this happen? I've had several people who are very divine tell me that they think I let this happen to me on purpose so that that can put me on a rescue mission to help all the others. So I'm like, yeah, that suits my temperament, actually. It doesn't suit my temperament to be taken by surprise, but it does suit my temperament to say, okay, I'm going to let them do this to me. And then once I figure out how to get out of it, I'll be able to help everyone else get out of it. And then the light will really blast.
So once you get out of it, or is it like once you break it, it's done?
I think once I get out of it, I'm going to be powerful enough that they can't do it again. And if they only did it the first time because I let them, then, but it will be nice to be able to help a lot of other people and blast the light. Other things you can do. They're saying send love out to everyone around you. And remember that when you meet people that you can't stand, in a past life, they were a loving person. You know, that they're going through an experience for this reason, for a purpose. And that we've all had past lives where we've been awful. Yeah, absolutely. Just love, sending love. When I do past life regressions at the end, you know, when I'm like, okay, now it's time to die, I will ask them, show me my life path. Was I on my life path? And show me any lessons, you know, how and why I lived the life I did. And they'll show me like my life path and life paths of everyone involved. And when someone did something to me that was awful, but it was in our agreement that they would, because that would be the catalyst for me to do something I had to do. And when someone would do something awful to me in my life path because they were off their path and creating havoc everywhere. So they showed me this one fellow who caused so much harm to me in a life. And at the end of his life, and they showed me his path, and it was just like a huge swatch of destruction everywhere. And then he died, and he had to do his life review, and he saw how badly he had mangled his life and how like, and he had so much remorse. All of us that he had harmed in life, we all appeared there and sent him love and healing, and we forgave him. Because who this guy was not just this one life. It's the total of all his lives and his higher state. You know, that life is just one facet of who he is. And that facet must be healed. Yes. Practice Ho'ohonohono. Are you all familiar with this? It is, it's actually originally taught by aliens, so it's wonderful. This is Hawaiian. It's Pohonono, I think. Wait, what, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it backwards. If you start Googling it, the whole thing will come up. Ho'oponopono, Ho, Ponono, Ho'opono, Pono. Yeah, it's obviously it's not. But here's the thing: it is amazing to practice and very, very healing and raises the light, and it helps reduce ego. Now, keep in mind, ego will only ever live within you at your lowest level. Ego is really like more your servant. So if you are saying, oh, I'm going to manifest this great thing, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, no, you're not. Ego will latch on to no, you're not, tie it to your self-esteem, and you won't. It'll always drag you down. So you always want to raise your vibration so that ego can rise up to the highest vibration. Very important. That's why you see these idiots that everything works for them because they have total belief in themselves. So their ego is up there working on a very high vibe. So exactly. Exactly. So here we have a room full of light bringers. Light bringers usually have the worst self-esteem. Get your self-esteem up, get your ego up there on a very high vibe. Yes. It's not about you. It's about the energy. It's about the vibe. So long ago when the Hawaiians lived, at one with nature, they would live in very small communities, just what the environment could support. And because you're in a small community, they would be very empathically, telepathically connected. It was as though they were one. So if one person was feeling any kind of distress, everyone could feel it. So you would say to this person, the Ho'oponopono, it's a healing and completely ego. I thank you. Wait, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I thank you. I love you. Now, if we say it with ego, like if you're having a fight with someone and you say that, like, oh my God, my friend's being such a B word. I'm going to do some ho'opono. Please forgive me because you're such a B word. I am so sorry that you misunderstood everything. Thank you for what? You ruined my day. And yes, of course, I love you. Like, it's not going to work. You have to be one with this person so that their pain is your pain. And by healing yourself, you're healing them. As a mother, I first really got my head around it by practicing on my son, because of course he came from me, he is me. And by practicing it on him, then that helped me release my ego so I could practice elsewhere. But please forgive me. I'm sorry. I thank you. I love you. And this is like, if you look it up, you'll see it. There's an amazing story about the Institute for the Criminally Insane in Hawaii. They got this man to come on and be the head psychiatrist, the director. And to make a long story short, this place was in bad shape, like just the worst you could imagine. And the employees wouldn't even show up for work. And they were like abusing the out of control inmates who had to be super drugged up. It was like awful. He started doing ho'oponopono on every single patient there. He would just have their files brought to his office and he would spend time doing ho'oponopono on the file. He wasn't even meeting the patients. He was just doing that. In fact, he wouldn't even go into the facility itself. He kept his office separate so that he could do ho'oponopono without any ego or connection. And within a very short period of time, everything changed in this place. The inmates stopped acting up. The employees were finding it was actually pleasant. They were showing up on time for work. And because there were so many of them, they could start doing really fun things with the inmates. The need for medication reduced and went away. People were being released back into society and thriving. And it was all because of ho'oponopono. So it's very, very powerful healing. Imagine if we can do this without ego to those who are causing pain to the world. Now, I personally cannot. I cannot do ho'oponopono to any of our politicians or to ISIS. But I can do it to those who are doing it to them. I can send the energy to them. And there are kahuna, magicians, practitioners who are doing this. So you can look online for this.
So there's a lot of you behind everything trying to fix it.
There's so
People
many.
don't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming otherwise.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about not sending it directly to them, but to the people that collect them instead,
Mhm.
because that would be good.
Yeah, otherwise it's too
Or,
exhausting.
yes,
Yeah.
What you talked about, there is a little, I have the book, I've used it because of the mental illness piece. I got into it because of that story you just told.
Yeah.
But there's a little blue book called Ho'oponopono, and it's good. But actually, I think his name is Joe Vitale. He took that doctor's, he did a weekend, and he went, and he was so moved that he and the doctor wrote a book together, and it's called Zero Limits.
Yes, thank you.
Zero Limits.
Zero
Limits.
Limits.
And so I read the Ho'oponopono book, but the Zero Limit book explained it to me better, and in a way I could use it more. So I liked them both. But and then there's a book after that, but the Zero Limits,
Mhm.
I think, is because it tells that story, but that doctor's involved, and then it's a really good way to get into it. And then it explains why those 4 sentences work, because there's more to it. But this is just the page you only get is just those 4 things. So it's in my car, it's on my mirror, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like the race chair experiment.
But you're never doing it to someone. You're
Very
doing
much.
it to you because you're connected. And so that book. So anyway.
Yeah,
Would
it's
you-
very powerful.
Would you essentially do that before you do the cord cutting? Or does it not matter the cord?
It's different.
They're different. They're different because cord cutting is they're different ceremonies. I would do Ho'oponopono. For me personally, I do it when I need to heal a wound between myself and someone else that I love. And I'll do cord cutting when I need to release, or again, before every family reunion. Yeah, but I don't think I would ever do both at the same time.
No, they're different. It's like they're different tools in my toolbox. But I will tell you this, I had that book, I tried to read it, and I was just like reading it for them. And I'm reading all these other great energy books. I sat it down, and then because of our situation, my husband, I don't want to read this. And it was like I threw him a life ring. He read it. He's like, "Oh, this is great." I'm like, "You understood that?" And he read it before me, and I was, "That's amazing." And then 6 months after that, I could read it. It made sense to me. And then we happened to have a situation going on, and we sat on our couch and we looked at each other, and he's like, "Oh, I'm like, "Yep." And we just sat there and did our own. And again, you have to make sure you're shifting, and you're not like going upstairs. It's going upstairs. It's like, no, it's going. It's in me. It's in me. What I'm seeing is in me, and you could feel. It caused a shift, and because we're just bawling by then, and he's not like a believer or like I don't know. And that book spoke to him, and it did. It was like a life ring, like a drowning person, and I was amazed because I couldn't read that thing for months.
Yeah,
Books find you when you need them or something.
it's true.
And it was probably the most powerful time I used it, where it literally you could just we felt the shift.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing how often, like, if I have a rift with someone and I don't feel like either of us owe each other an apology, like, for example, I called my son, "Okay, I'm coming home. Is your homework done?" He hadn't done his homework. He's playing computer games. And I started like, mom mode, and he starts kid mode, and I'm like, I can't talk to you like this guy. I'm like, wait a minute, I loved my son a moment ago, and then I'm screaming at him. And so I'm like, okay, I did a Ho'oponopono just to heal. And I go home, and there he is doing his homework, and the words out of his mouth, he's like, "Mom, I'm doing my homework. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Can you forgive me?" I was like, what? Yeah, exactly. But the words that came out of his mouth were not in the exact Ho'oponopono order, but the words were the first words out of his mouth included everything. And it's amazing how often when I heal a rift between myself and someone I love, when I don't know why we've rifted, when we reconnect, which will usually happen very quickly, like it's amazing how often they'll call me right after. Some part of those words will come out of their mouth immediately. So it's beautiful. One thing I want to mention, I totally forgot about Nefertiti. She is one of my favorite. Queen Nefertiti of Egypt. So you remember I spoke about how there was like the super races and the early Egyptians were really tapped in. And if you look in the history of Egypt, they do talk about like some super beings there that were between gods and between God and humans. And then you look at Nefertiti, and the women of her court all wore their hair in an unusual hairstyle. They had elongated heads, and it was believed that they pressed their heads between boards. No, they were aliens. They came here to bring enlightenment to people. And if you look at, I think Nefertiti's mummy is around, or they x-rayed her mummy, and you can see her skull and those of her like court ladies are all like elongated. It's very,
So they're like cone heads,
yeah, exactly.
which is
So-
where they got that idea from.
Might be.
They have this, a group of people, is it Lapland or something like that, where their heads are really shaped like that. Genetically, they are.
Yeah,
So I don't know if these are descendants of, or,
that's worth looking into. I hadn't heard about that. That's very
you
cool.
know, this group of people that I'm referring to.
No.
They've done, you know, they're somewhere in the Swiss Alps or something like that. And the whole community are cone-shaped.
Interesting.
Laplanders or something, I'm not sure what they do. They're aliens. Well, that's what you're
Well, that's
saying,
what
and
that's what I'm.
could be
Yeah,
You know, it's a DNA thing at this point, certainly,
yeah,
that you would produce that if that's what it is.
Hmm. yeah. So aliens have come through. Like I said, sometimes they come through and they're seen as God. Sometimes they come in and they're just quirky people. But look up Nefertiti. You know, great stuff. And it's amazing because she had a huge impact on Egypt, and she was considered very wise. So, and I never really thought one way or the other about her being an Egyptian. I think women in general are pretty wise. And but other people that I work with on the extraterrestrial stuff have, from enough resources, have all said that she was an ET. So that's, yeah. And they wanted to get that into the Egyptian people because they were like the high culture of the time.
So is it possible that, like, even like a child, one of your children can be an alien?
Part, yeah. Oh, you mean born an alien? What usually happens is if you are, because each of us is an eternal being. So if you are a being from another place that wishes to spend life as a human, usually, or if you are a divine conduit, you know, like write down the website God Manifesting. Liz and Giselle. Liz is the mother, Giselle is her daughter, who's now, I think, 14. When Giselle was about 6 years old, she was like so fully connected. She was talking with angels. She could leave her body no problem. She, you know, I've worked with them, and it's amazing when we're like, gee, I wonder what God would think about this. She'll go, I'll find out. And she'll like space out. She'll come back. God said, you know, or what would Jesus think about that? I'll find out. She's like, she is amazing. She's just like literally fully connected. And she is happy to help anyone learn how to expand their connections. It's her, you know, it would be great if all of us could be fully connected, and we each have the ability for this. But they work now, more and more children are at very young age becoming fully connected, awakening on this very high level. So Giselle works with these children. Here she is at the ripe old age of 13 or 14, and she's working with these children to handle being connected, but she also helps anyone who wants awaken their connections and expand their connections. And so, so as for children who are, like non-human, they'll develop an awareness of it at a young age, or they're choosing to live life completely as a human, and they'll always be, that way. The other thing is, as Earth, a lot of, as people are going through a life cycle, and say you have on your path, okay, I'm going to live till I'm like about 30, and then I'll die in a car accident, because that's how long this life cycle will be for me to learn this lesson. Well, someone will nearly die, but they survive, but they're different. They seem different. Aliens will come through and take, and this is by contract. This is not by stealing. So the person will nearly die, but then the alien takes over their body and they live and they continue the rest of the life so that some alien will have a chance to have the human experience. And there's
So that's the walk-ins. They don't want to do the birth thing. They don't want to do the birth thing or the kid thing. They kind of walk in, huh?
Well, part of it is a lot of human bodies are taken up by humans having the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like aliens can just come in whenever they want and be born all through. But if someone's done with the body, then they can have it afterwards to have an experience. Yeah. So sometimes it might be even someone dies at, in birth or at age 2, they might then hand it over to an alien. Yeah. So there are, start checking with your more spiritual friends who have had extreme near-death experiences and see how many of them are still them and how many of them, if they talk a lot about, I was floating in the corner, but then I came back in, then that's still them. But, yeah.
What did she say? She talked about angels being over,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom probably knows more than I do, but she had a heart attack and died on the table, and they brought her.
That's amazing.
That's weird to think that. I don't know if she was different. You know what I mean?
Well, when they talk about the angels and coming back, then that's them.
Okay.
The ones who are a new person, they usually don't talk about it that much because they're here to have a human experience, not to advertise, hi, I come from the collective of the whatever.
That's true. That's very
Yeah.
true. Okay.
So
Makes
they,
sense.
so they,
Somebody had
yeah.
So theoretically, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a, say someone passed, like you said, and then they pick them up, lost it,
Mhm.
and then they decide to have a child. Is that child now a hybrid? Or is it still human because it's a human body?
It's still human. But it will have energetic imprints that allow it to be higher vibration, higher connected. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a possibility that one of those could be when it's gone out.
Well, I mean, I'm a rogue spark, so yeah. And when I do past life readings for people, it's often when I'm like, oh, here's a life where you were in another dimension. And I'll tell them, and they'll go, that's so crazy. I've always felt like, and so, yeah, we are sometimes aliens in other places. Yeah, the more we raise our vibration, the more we connect. So if you feel like you are being selfish by taking time to meditate, you're not. You're saving the planet.
Oh, that's what I'll put on my sign. I'm saving the planet. Do not disturb. Meditation in progress.
Exactly.
So many things I'm not doing
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions? Was there anything people wanted to talk about that we didn't get into? So I know it's sort of a broad subject today with quirky details.
Well, what about crop circles?
Oh, crop circles. There's actually more than one reason why crop circles are created, but mostly it's for fun, really.
So it's not messing around, or is it just people
No, it's
I have a crop circle story when you're done.
oh, okay. So there you can see footage of crop circles happening. Like you can go on YouTube and not just pictures the day after, watching everything get flattened in pattern. It's very, very cool. There are, it is a form of communication. It is kind of messing around, having fun, but it's really fun. It's art. It's, and it's my understanding that it's not anything menacing, but there are people now who are developing the ability to make crop circles telekinetically as well. So, what's your crop circle
my
story?
son Richard, his grandfather was a geologist when he was at Dartmouth College, and he won the Roebling Medal in 2000. I mean, he was a big deal geologist. He was hired by the Rockefeller Institute to study crop circles. And after he retired, he and a botanist from Harvard, so the two of them were doing studies. What they discovered was that some of the crop circles were John Doe and his weed whacker.
Right.
But some of them were, he said, they were consistent with exposure to extremely high levels of radiation in the microwave range.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said there is nothing that people have that could do what has happened in those circles. And I could feel the hair on the back of my neck go up.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you think did it? And he ended up saying, you want me to tell you the truth? And I said, absolutely. He said, I think it's aliens.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and this man would not believe anything unless his instruments could measure it. So when he said that to me, I went, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's real.
yeah.
And that's the thing, like some of the crop circles have such precision to them, even down to the individual plants laid absolutely perfectly. It's not something John Doe and his deer is going to do.
No.
It's,
So it's kind of like, hey, what's going on? This means tomorrow.
it's my, I'm not a crop circle expert, definitely, but I know some of it is like art, some of it is communication, some of it is fun, some of it is sending energy to people, sending energy to us. If you meditate on the patterns of the crop circle, you may, find some connection. And you know what? I'm going to check with a friend who knows more than I do, and then I'll message Kathleen with the answer that she gives me. Yeah.
So we can actually watch tonight also.
Yeah. What this? That I'm.
Are you recording yourself?
I am recording myself. I'm going to load it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll load it up so that you guys can go back and watch it.
There's some things that
Yeah. I'm not going to load it up tonight though. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll check some of the things we talked about. I'll check with some of my friends who have more expertise than me, see if I can get more detailed answers for you all. Certainly, really, it sounds so crazy, but the best thing we can do is raise our vibe. I've seen, and I know we're running over time, but I just want to say this. I've seen visions of the future Earth, and it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Amazingly good.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
But are
Well-
you talking about 1,000 years from now?
No, I'm talking even 100 years from now. But between now and then, there's going to be
Yeah.
some disruption.
We'll be happy angels. We'll all be
Yeah.
happy. Good job.
I was in I took a workshop, it was a couple years ago, with some Peruvian shaman. We were there when they did some kind of leaf. And all I remember them saying was, there will be no safe places, but many safe people.
Yeah.
And it gave me comfort. And I think it's just, you hold the light and collectively you just share the light. And it's like, you know, when you're in the church services or and you have the light and you turn and light someone else's and light someone else's and the whole thing. That's how I feel.
That's it.
That's our job. In whatever way we can light someone else's candle. It's all connecting.
Well, I feel like here at our group, we share so much love and light. It's so, vibration. And it's so nice. We have such a support group.
Thank God.
Yeah.